Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe Muro. And now, here's Zoe.
Hello, folks. Welcome to the New Thought Media Network, and welcome to Choice, your creative superpower. My name is Zoe Muro, and I am indeed delighted to be your host. If you're coming back, it's good to spend time with you again. And if this is your first time, well, welcome. Each Thursday at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 12 noon Mountain Time, we explore how you can use the amazing superpower of choice to create your life experience for the greatest good. I'm a religious science practitioner at the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living in Northern California. I'm also a transformational coach. I work with people who are looking to live their lives to the fullest. Today's episode is episode 25. We'll be looking at choice and mindset. Now, this is something of an unusual topic. What makes it unusual is that, unlike some of the other episodes where we talked about how choice makes a difference relative to the topic, relative to integrity or relationships, what have you, with mindset, there's very much a reverse situation, meaning that mindset makes a huge difference in the choices we make, perhaps even more so than how choice affects mindset. So let's get into this and see how it plays out. Now, my own work relative to mindset started with my parents and their mindsets, which were actually radically different from one another in some respects and surprisingly similar in others. Now, in all fairness, it would be an oversimplification to say that our parents define our mindset initially, but there is a lot to be said for those early experiences and interactions. Now, I just said mindset affects choice much more than choice affects mindset. I do have one huge disclaimer here. A child's mindset is probably affected most heavily by the choices made by others until such time as they become self-aware enough to begin defining their own identity. Now, I have to say, quite honestly, that some people seem to never reach that point. They wind up living their life lacking a truly personal understanding of themselves, seeing themselves only through the eyes of others. It's true. In fact, if you're a parent, I will encourage you to consider the subtle and sometimes not so subtle at all cues that you give your child and how they could affect their development. Of course, you already know that. I mean, you're a good parent. But there might be some surprises as we go through this topic in a little more depth. So I'm going to start with my mom's mindset. I spent a fair amount of time, obviously, as a young child with my mom. And she really wanted me to adopt her mindset. To a great extent, if I had to describe it, I would say it was to go along to get along. Now, it's not that she disliked or turned away from conflict. Oh, no. My mom could and would argue with the best of them. But if she felt someone was in a superior role or position compared to herself, she would become subservient to a fault. Her own self-worth became not only secondary, but inconsequential. It was more of an abdication than a surrender. For me as a child, it was clear that when my father stated what was to be, that was it. My mother might disagree, but she would never challenge, she would never intervene. She had what I would call a hierarchical mindset. And relevance either increased or decreased depending on where you were, higher or lower in the hierarchy, as she perceived it. Now, as it turned out, she considered herself to be lower in virtually every hierarchy she felt existed, putting the priorities of others above her own in nearly all situations. That was a choice that was effectively dictated by her mindset. The effect on my life was actually devastating at times. And I use that term not to be dramatic, but honest. When I was abused by a priest, when I was a young boy, my mother simply couldn't accept that a person that she put at very nearly the top of all hierarchies, just below God, could possibly have done something so terrible. This was pure cognitive dissonance on her part. So I was told I was wrong. Wrong for accusing him. Wrong for speaking about it. Wrong for even thinking it. I did a whole episode about abuse last September, episode 14. So that's as far as I really want to go with it here, other than to talk about how her mindset so significantly affected me. My father's mindset was significantly different in some ways. But again, he looked at the world hierarchically. The difference being he sought out ways to be at the top, or at least near the top of each hierarchy that he felt existed. In the 1950s in particular, that meant as head of the family, he called the shots, all the shots. This was the same dynamic that his father employed. It really didn't take me long to reject their approach. I would say that it actually took until I was a teen, though. By the time I was a teen, the world was changing. And the freer thinking, freer acting 60s, that would be the 1960s, provided an alternative way of looking at life. And it actually helped transform my mindset from subservience to outright rebellion. And that was probably my first real work on developing or changing my own mindset. I suppose for each of us, there would be some similar and many different factors that fit into our development of our mindset. But it's very important to recognize that mindset is indeed dynamic, and it's potentially ever evolving, which makes it a potentially ever evolving force in our lives. At some point, we do get to decide what our mindset will be. In fact, we may very well have different mindsets for different aspects of life. Well, different applications of mindsets, really. The most basic types of mindset may well be, as Dr. Carol Dweck posits in her book, which is reasonably enough entitled Mindset. She suggests that there's either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset. A growth mindset is based on believing you can grow, evolve, if you will, through your efforts. And perhaps even more importantly, a growth mindset recognizes and appreciates the effort itself. Let's contrast that with a fixed mindset. With a fixed mindset, We believe that our qualities are basically fixed. We can appreciate success, the achievement itself, but anything less than achieving the goal is a failure and evidence of our inability. There is no benefit. There's no accolades given to the attempt, only to the success. Now, we'll see how this plays out as we continue, but there are two major factors that I want you to consider that come into play in the development of a person's mindset: awareness and choice. Awareness, because mindset is something that many people never truly recognize as being a factor in their life. And choice, because at some point we do get to choose many things which can help us develop a healthy or unhealthy mindset. Now, I mentioned that the primary distinction in mindset is growth versus fixed. And I also mentioned that there could be other types of mindsets, subdivisions, if you will. But it's really the application of a mindset to a specific condition, circumstance, or even to a relationship. And how we approach our use of mindset will change significantly based on the circumstance, the condition, etc. Let's put it another way. While we may be able to bring a growth mindset to one aspect of our life, we might lag behind with a fixed mindset in another. I'll give you a fairly straightforward example of that. I know many people who exhibit a growth mindset in virtually everything they approach. But ask them to speak publicly, and they freeze up. They're convinced they could never be proficient as a speaker. Most of us, if not all of us, have our blind spots, those places where it's not about a lack of knowledge, but an inability to accept that while we might not be able to hit the ground running, we can nevertheless start at a walk and progress. And more importantly, from a mindset perspective, we can give ourselves props for putting in the work. Now, I was one of those people that was absolutely unable to do anything that even remotely resembled public speaking. And I held that in my mind for the longest time. I guess I got over it. I want you to think about what you see as your strengths. Okay? Are these things that you feel are just, they're simply your innate proficiencies? I want you to think about what you see as your weaknesses, or your areas needing improvement, or what you consider simply absolutely inabilities. And remember, I'm not talking about things you wouldn't have any reason to know. I mean, I'm not going to suggest that everyone knows how to build a skyscraper. Fair enough. But another example from my own life. I've told people for years I'm a slow learner, till I became aware I'm not. It was an application of a fixed mindset that led me to believe that. In a weird way, it gave me permission to not try as hard and not to expect as much for myself. Over the past, 10 years or so, I'd say a good decade, I have proved to myself that what held me back was a sort of a mental inertia, right? So I like that term, inertia. If an object at rest tends to remain at rest, then a mind that accepts a limitation tends to remain limited. Mental inertia. Now, I had mentioned the profound effect that parents and to be fair, others in positions of authority can have the development of a child's mindset. And as you go through life, depending upon how you accept aspects of this into your mindset, you might actually be accumulating more and more, depending upon your approach. But while we talk about the development of a child's mindset, think about phrases that you hear every day. And you can be pretty sure that you're talking about a fixed mindset. I mean, maybe someone is talking about a group of kids and say, well, Helen was always a gifted child, but Eric has to struggle just to keep up. All right. So we feel that Helen is gifted, but Eric is struggling. Eric might actually have more on the ball than Helen, in that Eric, while he might be struggling, is trying. Helen might actually be taking it easy. It's hard to say. Oh, Harry's the smart one in this group. Well, if your name isn't Harry and you're sitting in that group and you've heard this, how did that affect you? Depending upon your mindset, that could be quite devastating. Oh, Jane is creative, but she's not very practical. Now, if Jane heard that, how much does she take in? How much does she allow that to influence her life? Jane is going to be a pro golfer someday because she's a natural. I always like that natural. So many people in so many professions and so many aspects of their life started off as someone that you never in a million years would have thought would succeed. And yet they did amazing things. Okay. So whether we're talking about children, we're talking about young adults, talking about adults, I want you to really think about the types of things that you hear, the types of things that you say, and get an understanding of how your mindset is affected. And also think about how you view others. Do you praise success and dismiss anything less than that? When I was racing, my measure of success was always based on my ability to win a medal. Now, I didn't win races from the get-go. I'm talking about what are referred to as age group medals. So if I finished in the first, second, or third place in my age group, I considered that to be a successful race. It wasn't really based on how hard I worked in the race or what obstacles I overcame or what I had done to get to that point. Now, I realized eventually that I had reached a higher level of mindset, a healthier mindset regarding my athletic ability when I came in fourth or fifth in a race. And I knew I had given that everything I had. I had lifted all out on the course, as my coach would say. Recognizing that, being able to see that that effort was something to value, made a huge difference. I'd watch people running along and they would have the most incredible, beautiful strides. And I'd compare it to my own, which was not quite the same, not by a long shot. But I also knew where I had started. I also knew what I had been capable of overcoming. Now, I'm really not that much of a sports person, but when you talk about mindset, sports comes into play quite a bit. And if you think about baseball and batting averages, if somebody is hitting 280 or 300, it's considered to be a really good hitter. And if you're hitting 300 or more, that's considered to be exceptional. But here's the thing, folks. That means that more than 60% of the time, that person that we say is an exceptional hitter was hitless. All right? More than 60% of the time. I like this quote from Michael Jordan, who's considered by many to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. I know we can argue that. He said, I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I was trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I have failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed. That is a growth mindset. The interesting thing about a growth mindset is that it's actually better equipped to bring about success because it's not based in the belief that you can do anything you put your mind to, but rather that you can try anything. A fixed mindset, more often than not, is going to be looking for an excuse to not even try. Or it's going to conflate every misstep along the way as proof of your inferiority. Let's go back to choice for a moment. How can I use choice to develop or encourage a growth mindset? It starts with your willingness to be open and honest with yourself. If you can choose to approach this topic, well, any topic for that matter, if you can choose to approach a topic with what the Buddhists refer to as beginner's mind, you are well on your way already. The Zen teacher, Shunryu Suzuki, stated it this way. If your mind is empty, it is always ready for anything. It is open to everything. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are few. Choosing beginner's mind is, despite its name, what can lead to tremendous growth in virtually any endeavor. Ernest Holmes, founder of Science of Mind, which is also known as religious science, understood this completely, and he would not allow anyone to regard the Science of Mind message as being infallible. He wrote this. He wrote, religious science is shorn of dogmatism, freed from superstition, and open at the top for greater illumination. It is unbound and free. I like that. I mean, think about it. That's a wonderful way to live your life. To be open at the top, unbound and free. In my own study of Science of Mind, I have seen that there is often more benefit in the questions than in the answers. I had a conversation a number of years ago with a friend of mine. We're talking about spiritual beliefs and such, and she wanted to know about Science of Mind. And during our discussions, we spoke about the books that were central to our spiritual philosophies. She held up her book and she said, "This is where I find my answers." And my response, holding up the Science of Mind text, was, "And this is where I find my questions." If you can choose to value learning as much as you can value knowledge, you're on the growth mindset path. If you can choose to view ignorance as an opportunity rather than an impediment, you're on the growth mindset path. perhaps not surprisingly, if you want to affect change in your life, a growth mindset can make this far easier. And what do we say in Science of Mind? What do we say in New Thought? We co-create our existence. We co-create our life experience. We change our life experience based on our approach, based on our thoughts. So a growth mindset opens us up to possibility. For us to affect a change, we have to believe that change is possible. Likewise, as we work towards that change, if we choose to appreciate the effort itself, that appreciation can sustain us through the process. Choosing to appreciate how far you've come as opposed to being concerned about how far you still have to go, that's far more important than what people often refer to as having discipline or being disciplined. Now, when I work with people who are looking to affect change in their life, I always ask about any experience that they've had already in this regard. I want to get a sense of what they know, what they need to know, what they believe, what they disbelieve. Is this something they've looked at before? And if so, I ask what they believe has prevented them from succeeding in past attempts. It's not uncommon when I go through this type of a discussion with people to find that there's some element of a fixed mindset at the heart of their prior experiences. And unless that changes, they might simply be heading down the same path yet again. But the great thing is, more often than not, when people come to me and they're looking to affect change, they have activated their growth mindset. You don't want to sit there and say, well, I've just never been the type of person who can, and you can fill in the blank. Now, I don't make an assumption when I'm working with someone about any of this, but for the sake of discussion, let's say that the change they're looking for is something they truly want, they value or identify within their life, and therefore it has relevance. Because remember, if you're talking about a growth mindset, we're talking about things that are very personal to you. You want to be able to know that the change that you're looking to affect is relevant. So with our growth mindset firmly in place, we explore what worked, what didn't work. We discuss what's known, what needs to be known, where there was support that was sufficient and where it was lacking. We explore and investigate. We learn and strengthen. We prepare for success. And I'll tell you something, folks. They succeeded far more often than not because they chose not only to do the work, but to do the work that allowed for growth, allowed for progress, allowed for beginner's mind. Beginner's mind, even if it was the 5th or the 10th time they were doing this. So I'll encourage you to give some thought to where in your life you see either a growth or a fixed mindset at work. Perhaps looking at those areas in your life where you've struggled the most will be fertile grounds for this exploration. But remember, look at those where success came more easily as well. See if you've made assumptions about yourself based on these successes, or no, I'm not going to call them failures. Let's call them opportunities for more. Okay, so we want to be able to look at where we've been successful, get an understanding of why. Where we've been less successful, get an understanding of why. All right. we co-create our life experience. You have the opportunity. You have the power. Make the choices that make a difference. Hi, Fiona. Yes, it's evening in Geneva, isn't it? Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Well, folks, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. I'd love to hear what you think about mindset. I'd love to know where you find a fixed mindset at work, where you find a growth mindset at work. I'd love to hear what you do to promote a growth mindset. So please feel free. You can email me. There we go. At zodemuro@gmail.com. I would be more than happy to hear what you have to say about mindset or any topic that you would like to see me cover during these episodes. Anything that has to do with choice. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'll encourage you to go to ntmedia.org. Check out everything that we have to offer here. If you're looking for prayer, for meditation, information, discussion, you've got it. New Thought Music? Yep. ntmedia.org/listen. 40 hours of programming each and every week. And we've got so much more coming. Today at 12 noon, that's 12 noon Pacific time or 1 p.m. Mountain time, I would encourage you to check out Finding the Joy in the Journey with a wonderful, wonderful person, the radiant Reverend Gina Calvario-Krupka. So if there is anything that you would like to understand about New Thought, wow, you have found a great resource here. So look around, see what you can find. And by all means, explore the world of New Thought. Explore how you can bring about so much more in your life. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Until we meet again, choose wisely. Much love. Many blessings, folks.
Choice, your creative superpower. We have the power to manifest as we dedicate attention to our thoughts, but often miss opportunity to achieve the greatest good. Your superpower is waiting to be unleashed to unlock a fuller, more rewarding world for all. Join us every Thursday at noon Mountain Time for Choice, your creative superpower with Zoe DeMuro.